Welcome to Next Level Toys. Hope you got yourself some popcorn, some drinks. This is going to be a long video. We are reviewing over 500 vintage Hot Wheel cars. We're going to start off with this Royal Flash. This is late, early 80s. Black walls. Every car here is going to be at least 20 years or older. Condition will vary. This is from the 80s, early 90s. It's a race car in very nice condition. A lot of times it's missing the cockpit glass. I don't think there's a chip on this. It's a beauty. Cannot go wrong with the Mercedes. Early mid-90s. You can tell by the rim style, they always change the rims every few years. Solid metal casting. Y'all know that's my favorite. I love metal on metal. How about a blue Peterbilt? It's missing the back part, but other than that, it's in very nice shape. 90s. Here's a Hot Wheels. It says 80s, but this is 90s. Made in Thailand. All metal. My favorite. Then we have ourselves, is this a Chevy? I'm not really sure, but I think it is a Chevy. Hot rod in very pristine shape. I made sure there's no doubles in here, but there might be a couple because there's a lot of cars. I think I may have two of these in this. If I come across it, I'll just skip it. This is the police Hot Wheel truck. You can tell by the rims, most of them will have this style. That one or like the previous one. But again, there's going to be some older ones in here from late 60s, early 70s, early 80s. This is an early 90s garbage truck from my childhood. I had three of them ironically, and the other two are destroyed pretty much. I never played with this one. I guess I somehow just knew, didn't I? Speaking of vintage, here is the Large Charge Hong Kong. And this is the High Voltage. This is an original Hot Wheel car. I wish it was red lines. The way you can tell a Hot Wheel car if it's really old is if it's made in Hong Kong. That's usually a dead giveaway or a patent pending. That means it's at least 70s, early 80s. This is in very nice shape. And we cannot forget this traditional Eagle dragster car. This is definite late 80s, early 90s. Black walls. Made in Malaysia. It's in very nice shape. This is one of my favorite Hot Wheel cars. Let me know if you want me to perhaps do some drag racing with these cars. We have 1,000 feet of Hot Wheel track. Trying to figure out what I'm going to do with it. If you're into that, please let me know what you think. We can do some drag races. This is a Toyota, I believe. M2, yes. This is an early 90s casting. Plastic, but as long as it has metal on the top, I'm fine with that. This is a T-Bird. Older one. All metal. That's usually a dead giveaway too. This is the 80s Thunderbird. Solid cherry red paint. Ferrari 1982, but this is the 90s casting of it, as that casting went up for many years. I do like this one. You can see the solid metal engine. It's just all metal. Only bad thing is these break off. Luckily, ours did not. Mazda, I believe. This is the yellow one, early 90s, with the pink interior. This is an early 90s race car, all metal. You can't tell, but the color paint is kind of an orangish pinkish. I love this color, and it's in very nice shape. Ferrari, 90s definitely. The wheels are dead giveaway. Plus I've had this for well over 20 years myself. All metal. Here's a Lamborghini, all metal. The body will fool you because it looks like it's plastic, but it's metal. The tail of it, that's plastic. One old number 5. Probably the most classic Hot Wheel car ever made. It's just one of them Hot Wheel cars. If you got a Hot Wheel collection, I'm sure it's in it. However, this is in very nice shape, and it's the original version of it. Just slightly dusty from where I've had it sitting. We got some unusual cars in this collection too. It's the snake car. It's a big snake, early 90s. It might roll good if it rolls straight. This is a Firebird, I believe, or a Trans Am. It does show a Chevy logo in there, so it must be a Camaro. I can't tell, but this is the older 90s Hot Wheel car. Ta-da. These are from my childhood. This is about the average condition of my cars because I played the crap out of them. These are 80s. We got the yellow version and the blue one. I have several hundred of my original Hot Wheel cars, but a lot of them's in pieces or missing pieces because I was the one to take hammers to them. But that's the whole fun, right? You can't do it with these plastic ones these days. This is a 1980s truck, another one from my childhood. It's very traditional for these to break off. Had a lot of fun with this big black wall truck. This is an early 80s, late 70s Hot Wheel Charger. I believe it's a Charger. It's some kind of a race car, but in pretty nice shape for its age. Plastic faded away, but it's a really nice car. Coast Rescue. How many of y'all like the Jeeps? I love them, only except for how these break off, but this one is actually in very nice shape. This is early 90s. How many of y'all remember the color changers? You dip them in water and it changes color. All metal. I have a few of these color changers. These are from one I played with as well. That's how I know the color changers. This is a Porsche, by the way. Here's a Thunderbird that went with that car. This is a color changer. It will change into a darker green. Then we got this really nice race car from the 90s. It looks literally like it's just been opened. I picked this up a few years ago in a box of toys. Very nice shape. Definite 90s. Here's a very old Z-Wiz Hong Kong. I believe it's a Porsche. Not in the best of shape, but it's all metal, black walls. A definite cool piece. The Fire Eater. This one is not made in Hong Kong, but it's an older one. They made that casting for a long time. And speaking of that, we all have seen this casting many, many times. Now, this is the original older fire truck made in Hong Kong, patent pending. This is from the 70s or early 80s. But they made red lines as this, but this is not the red line. Very classic 90s Mustang, early 90s. This is a earlier model with the red and tan. Very nice in condition there. You can see it. It is all metal Mustang. How many of y'all like the Corvettes? We have 3 different variations of these. All metal. These are early 90s. Except for the top, that's plastic. So we got the red one. Then we got the blue one. All with opening hoods. Can y'all guess what the other one is? Yes, it's black. Ta-da. Put those all down here with the others. Here's the other color changer. I got 2 more color changers actually. This is a Ferrari. When I was younger, I loved Ferraris, and I still love them. I always dreamed about having a Ferrari. I had so many Ferrari cars. This will turn into a darker pink when dipped in water. Late 80s, early 90s. Because that's when they was actually played with by me, because I've had them that long. Here is another Porsche. And it's the same thing, sort of. This is the 911 Porsche. It will change color also. If you're kind of curious about if they change color, they got the thicker paint. If it has chips in it and you see white, if the paint just seems more thicker, there's a good chance it's one of the color changers. They made several of them, but only for a few years. And we got a Lamborghini or a Jaguar. You know, these I've had for a long time too. And you'll notice the wheel, how it's green. I think this is a Jaguar, 90s. We have the full set of these. I can't remember how they came. They may have came into the gift set. This is another 911 Porsche. These are from my childhood. They were my premier cars, so I decided not to ever abuse them. And then we got the green one. All metal on metal. I bet these will still roll pretty good too. I didn't even put them in water when I was a kid. And we got the red one. If you know if they came in a gift set for sure, please let me know, because this has been so long. I was 10 years old, 10, 11, 12 years old when I actually had these cars. But they still roll like they're brand new. This actually came in the collection because you can tell by the colored wheels. But other than that, that's all I can really remember from those. How about the Hot Wheel tank? This is late 80s, early 90s. It has a slightly bent. Why they made that out of plastic, I'm not sure, but they did. So there's the tank. And yes, you'll see a lot of Porsches in this video, so I hope you like Porsches. Now I got this one, and then we got this one. Yeah, you're probably saying I boo-booed. If you look at the wheels, this one's older. This is the black walls. And then this one came shortly after. But they're 90s, both of them are. Other than that, they are identical. It's just the wheels are different. And we got another Thunderbird here. A very nice pink paint job with a very shiny bottom. 90s model. We have another Z-Wiz, which we're just going to say this is a Porsche. Just like the green one I got, but this is a blue one. Slightly better condition. Hong Kong. I love the metal on metal. Here's another Jaguar. I'm pretty sure these are Jaguars. Just like the purple one. Same wheel designs, it's not collared. This is 90s. early mid 90s. Silver. And then we have another one of these Mazdas. This one's a lot better shape than that yellow one. Definite 90s. All metal. Oops. This is a very rare casting for me. I have over 30,000 cars. I think this is the only Ferraro I have. I don't know what it is, but I just really never find these castings that often. This is an 80s model, late 80s, early 90s maybe, but I'm saying 80s. A really nice casting. This is definitely 80s. This is the Datsun. Another childhood car. I did bust the front windshield out. Other than that, it's in decent shape. You can see the hood. Metal. Metal. How many of y'all remember the Stunts cars? These came out in the 80s. All these are from my childhood. You would actually drive the car and you flip this lever and it'll cause the car to come up like that. It's been so long, but you push this trigger and it will cause the car to flip. Somehow, it's just been so long I can't remember how to do it now, but let's see if I can figure out how to do this. Flip that over. Okay, yeah. You flip it over. You put the car on. Well, it has been so long, but it flips it. This is the TV stunt team. Supposedly when you're driving it, it's supposed to flip itself. But I ain't kidding. This thing is solid metal. It is heavy. I don't know if it can even flip itself. While we're on the topic, we have this one too. If you see one that has the chrome windows, that's a dead giveaway that these are them type of stunt vehicles. Again, same type of platform. Let's see if this one will work a little better. Actually, I guess I lost the handle at some point. Now I can't disengage it. So, ooh, the handle broke off. I didn't know it broke off. So let's go to another type of car. Out of all my Hot Wheel cars, this is probably one of my favorite type of cars. Only because I have two of them. These are the flip outs. They work similar like those vans. Same time period. 80s. Not 90s. These came out in 88 and 89. But they worked a slightly different way. They may have revamped them. I think they may came after the vans. But I can't remember how you trigger it. But this is actually supposed to fling up and cause the car to flip this way. Don't mean to sound such a noob, but I haven't played with these since I was a kid. And it's just been so long ago now. Hopefully I didn't break that one. But no fear, we have a yellow one here. Ta-da. And these are all metal. I just love them. And they're in pretty good shape. Hong Kong also. They did not reproduce these. So if you find one, it's original. So it drives. But don't know why. I can't figure out how to do this. I think that might be what it is. It has to hit something to engage it. Because that worked. That actually made it pop up. There we go. I think we figured it out. It has to bump something to make it pop up for some reason. But those are the flip outs. And then we have this. This is a gorgeous car. In my opinion, it's a fairly rare car. I don't see them too often. I was fortunate to not destroy this when I was a kid, but I had a white one, and it's upstairs, and this is ripped off, and it's just all smashed, but this one made it. This is from Hong Kong, and you hit it like it gets crashed in a car wreck. Ta-da. I don't want to hit it with another car because I don't want to chip the paint. It's got that beautiful gold paint on it. And then this works the same way. 1980s. In the 80s, they made some really interesting castings. This one will actually flip upwards. Just like that. You got the cockpit. But when it wrecks, it crashes on its top. Very awesome. They're all metal. And I definitely miss this time era of the Hot Wheel cars. If I find them, I will buy them as long as they're not $100 a car. Then we have a Dodge. I believe this is, I'm not really sure, but it's a Dodge. Stock car. It's like an old race car. This is the 80s. All metal. I played with it a lot when I was younger and it made it. It survived. This is an older car. This is a Mercedes, I believe. Yeah. I like my fancy cars. This was when I was in my teens and I started not playing with them as much and started collecting them. Most of my cars that in my childhood definitely did not have the windshields left over. These are from my childhood too. These are early 90s farm trucks. I remember putting little animals in here and I would dump them. I'd make them drive down the road and dump them, you know, just being mean or like that. So I got the red one and I got the blue one. Miraculously, I did not destroy these. Nice black wall. Large metal vehicles. Everything is metal except for the back dumpers. Alright, we had to clear the cars off to make room for more cars. How about a 1980s original solid police car from Hong Kong? Every car in this video is Hot Wheels. Every one of them. This is one of my oldest ones. The Diora. It was purple, still kind of purple. If you could see the red line around the tires. Yes. It used to have surfboards in here. This is not from my childhood. I just picked it up at a yard sale several years ago. This is the original 60s Hot Wheel car. People who like to restore cars, this is the perfect one for them, but I prefer to keep them original. This is the 80s, or actually, no, early 70s Hot Wheels. It is missing a top because it's kind of like a dune buggy type of thing. And this is called Ice-T. They made these as red lines, I believe, but this is not the red line version. If you're just not sure, the red lines has a little slit where you can pop off, and there are two-piece wheels. This clearly is not, because sometimes the red wheels, the red lines will like kind of get faded if they're really used. This is the Supra Toyota red one. This is a definite 80s with the gold rims. Early, late 80s. Then we have the black one to match it. This is the black Supra. You'll notice that in the 70s, 80s, it's all metal, metal on metal. But they decided to change that through the years. Then we have another Supra. This is also a black one. But again, I'm not going to repeat a car, so here it is. We have 3 police cars. These 2 are Hong Kong. And then this one is the newer Malaysia version. That's kind of why we put them in here. Same casting, only different paint schemes. Can't go wrong with the XT3. We'll just leave it at that. This is the Malaysia. My childhood. This is from the 80s. The big black walls. Be kind of hard to race that, but it's still around and still kicking. This is the Hot Wheels Space Racer, 1978 Hong Kong. I picked this up just literally a couple years ago. It's in one of my earlier videos. It was in a box full of toys, and I didn't even know it was in there until I got it home. It's plastic bottom, metal, but someone painted it. I'm thinking about trying to see if I can get that old paint off to see what that original paint looks like. It looks like a red and with yellow trimming. Besides that, it's in good shape, except it's missing a little piece here. And it's definitely not red line, but it's a cool little find for a 70s Hot Wheel car. This is from the 80s. This was actually a real rider in the 80s or early 90s. At some point in time, someone took the rubber wheels off. This is a 69 Hemi. Late 60s, early 70s. I love these older original paint jobs. It is not in the best of shape. And it's not a red line, surprisingly. But ta-da. It is a pretty cool car. It just needs some issues attended to, but we're just going to keep it as it is. This is a very heavy, solid Peterbilt. 80s. This thing is solid metal. Even the back. This thing is, you put two of these together, you got a pound, I guarantee it. It's just a really thick, heavy casting. Even if you took a hammer to it, I don't think it'd even damage it. I mean, this thing is solid. In my opinion, it's the top 5 biggest solid vehicles Hot Wheels ever made. In terms of this size, the 1/64 scale. This is the green version of the race car that I had. We had a yellow one a little bit ago, but this is the green one. This one's not from my childhood. We picked it up just a while back from the early 90s. This is the little jet. I did play with this when I was a kid. Didn't get really into it. That's why it's still together. But I've seen them where the tips fall off, and this is a plastic rubber fin. It's actually a really collectible car now because it's just unique. Here's a Baja Bug. We picked this up literally just a few months ago in a big bag of toys we got at the thrift store. I'm guessing it's early mid-90s, just because of the body style and the rim design. It's the same style, it's just different wheels basically. This is the Jeep that kind of goes with that red. Yeah, I like to think it goes with this Firebird because they're similar in terms of paint. I think that's the one, yeah. But this one is not the best of shape. It's in the 80s. This is a nice, solid, hefty 80s Jeep. You can definitely call this a black wall. Now, I got some more fire trucks. I'm going to put them in here just for a short spell because these are the original fire trucks from Hong Kong. So they're 70s, early 80s. But this one in particular is in very nice shape. I had a lot of these fire trucks when I was younger, and some of them did manage to survive. But I loved my fire trucks, and they had a lot of car wrecks. They needed help. The Good Humor. This is a classic for everybody. This is the original one from the early 90s. Still has my little dude in there selling ice cream. This is a Bronco. What's left of it. Someone painted it red with this old black wall. The Spoiler Sport. What's left of it. The paint is in very bad shape, but this is 70s, early 80s, Hong Kong. Got a military Jeep here from late 80s, early 90s. Got a little turret back here to shoot, spins. The big old rubber tires, plastic tires that is. Camouflage paint. And we got another dragster car here. This is the older ones. It's not Hong Kong, but it's still pretty old. It's at least 90s, early 90s. And how about a Ferrari? This one is Hong Kong. So it's at least 80s, I would say. Black wall. The paint needs some attention, but the body itself is in good shape. This is a really heavy Porsche carrier. All metal on metal. This is a 90s model. And it's a thick size car. I remember when I was a kid, I thought this thing was way over scale. It still might be, but maybe not. I don't know. It's a big car. Big, heavy casting. Here's another Ferrari. This one's in a little bit better shape. This is race bait. Can't tell with the black paint, but yeah, it's race bait. Definite 80s Ferrari. I have a bunch of Ferraris. Please forgive me. This is a 70s Hot Wheel Hong Kong race car. It was originally white. It's all metal. Look how thick that metal is. It is thick. If the wheels were in better shape, this thing would roll like a champ. But unfortunately, even when we don't play with them much, they get bent. That's the bad thing about them. So that's late 70s, early 80s. I watched someone go to the yard sale on a video just a couple days ago, and they had the same car for 50 cents. And I was like, heck yeah. But this is old Hot Wheels. This is from the 70s or early 80s. I love my Nomads. This is a really nice Nomad from the 90s. Got the gold rims, basic cherry red paint. I think they still make this casting. I'm not quite sure. They may have retired it recently, but I know they were doing it for quite a while. If you'd like to let me know, that'd be great. Here is a Lamborghini. You can see with the circle spokes on the rims, it's 90s. So it's a really nice shape. All metal on my metal there. It says 1990. But they all do. It's just each year they change the color on them basically until they retire them. Here's another funny car. That's what they're really called, but I've been calling them dragsters. And this is another one from Malaysia. This is the Mongoose. And this is from the 90s. Mongoose is really popular these days. We could probably clean off this red paint that someone painted on it. And besides that, it's in good shape. Here's another Crasher. You roll this back on the back. If it works. It may not. It might need some attention, but basically you hit that and it crashes just like the other cars. 1980s, Hong Kong. It's in good shape besides missing that. And it is missing the glass from the back, it looks like. That might be keeping it from not locking in. Here is a Hot Wheels Corvette from Hong Kong. I love the paint job on this and the style. This Stingray is a beautiful car. There's a bunch of Corvettes coming, so prepare yourself. This is from my childhood, what's left of it. It's just all beaten up, but in terms of my cars, this one actually survived pretty good. And I came across this last year. It's the same car, just better shape. And here's another Hot Wheels Hong Kong patent pending fire truck. Red. Someone literally painted it red on red. Here is another Corvette. It is similar to the other one. In fact, I dare say they're probably identical. It's just the paint on the yellow is rubbed off. Same rims. So yeah, we'll go with that. They're identical cars. How about the Dixie cars? They seem to be a dime a dozen because they're everywhere. But I got 3 or 4 of them, maybe 5 of them. We threw a couple of these in the video. These are from 70s, 80s. Here's another Z-Wiz. This one is in better shape. This is the blue. All metal. We can't throw all of our cars in this because we'll be here for solid 8 hours going through them. I thought a good 500 plus will be a good video for everybody. This is a nice Hot Bird T-top. I definitely like this car because it's a very iconic car. We have another Lamborghini from the 90s. I think they made all these metal on metal, which is really cool, good of them to do that. Here is a Real Rider, big heavy van. This is an older Real Riders, and you open it up, and you got the engine. Don't know why, but this is actually a plastic hood. And then we got the rubber, solid rubber tires. It sounds like an actual vehicle driving down the road. In very nice shape. A definite keeper. As I'm keeping them all, I'm just pulling them out to show everybody here. Here's another Pinto. Or a Poison Pinto, that is. This one's in a little bit better shape with the paint job. This is late 70s, early 80s. Like I said, here's the Corvettes. We have this awesome Corvette from the 90s. Real beautiful paint job. Solid metal. Got the gold rims. This will be one to race on the track just because it has so much weight on it. But that might slow it down too. It just depends. We have a paramedic ambulance. This is 70s, definitely. They did make these in red lines. This one is not a red line. We got another Trans Am. This one is a T-top, and someone decided to custom paint it. So I'm not sure if that's the original gold and they painted black over top of it to make it look like a Trans Am. It's just pretty battered up, but it is an older one from the 80s. Got 2 identical Porsches, the 95. Identical in every single way. How about a tow truck? It's missing the toe, but it's the more original one from the 80s, maybe even 70s. Here is another color changer. I believe this is a color changer. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm thinking it does change color. Mean green. I'm thinking it changes into a darker green when it gets dipped in water. But I've had it for a very long time, and it's in very nice shape. It's a definite 80s. And I'm pretty sure it's a color changer. Here is another Real Riders. Only way you can tell they were Real Riders if they got the rubber tires. That's how they did it. And they did pretty good paint jobs for them too. This is the green. It's just a green truck, but it is missing some headlights. It's plastic that tend to break off, and of course, these break off all the time. Got a Peterbilt that's missing the cement truck. I remember it having a cement mixer. I have it. I just haven't put it back on. It's up there somewhere. Here's a Porsche, which is white. Solid metal white Porsche. Here's an older Thunderbird that someone painted red, but even the red has faded over the years. It's definite 80s. Now here's a beautiful car from the 70s. This is what is called a little dragster car. See the bottom of it if you can see that. Patent pending. They made this out of plastic. I don't know why, but that breaks so easily. But that's the windshield. It's in good shape, I think, for its age. Here's another one of them Poison Pintos, but we'll skip that. It's customized. This is, I believe, a Fox Body Mustang. Pretty sure that someone painted red. I have no idea what the original paint was. It may have been red because the bottom is original red. 80s, 90s, I'm guessing there. This is a 70s Taller. Very bad shape, I agree, but we put him in here because it's a unique vehicle, and it's something I like, even if it has no paint on it. You can see the bottom of it there. If I'm holding it upside down, which I am. There you go. Now, I did not think I had any of these. The convertibles. I did a video a while back and got 4 of them in the packaging because I've never seen them. I was just going through my cars and what do you know? There's a convertible. So that really shocked me. This is from the 90s, early 90s, maybe even late 80s. You got the engine that pops up like that. You can see that. But I thought that was an interesting thing to come across. So there's that. We have an up front. It looks like a Nissan. It's definitely from the 80s. Then we have another Datsun, only this one has the windshield and it's in a lot better shape. Now I picked this up, of course, later on. Anytime I find older vehicles, I will buy them up, especially if it's in bulk. Now here's probably my oldest Real Rider. This is from the early mid 80s, and you actually pop this up like that, and now you got yourself a real dragster. If you want to change it back, you just drop her back in there. Still has the rubber. It's in really good shape. It is missing a headlight because they made it out of plastic. Here is a color changing Corvette. Yes, they made a blue one. It's a color changer. You can actually see where it's chipped, and it's like got some light blue chips on the bottom of it where it's gotten chipped over the years. But again, it's a nice Corvette. I love the Corvettes. Here is another Hot Bird. This is from late 70s, early 80s. Blue. Just your classic, simple Hot Wheel car. Then we have another T-top Thunderbird here, or Firebird. This is a Firebird. They look really similar to me. This is 80s, early 90s with the eagle on there. Another classic. Here's a unique Hot Wheel car. I don't know much about it, but I got a few of them. It has 2 little things back here. If you have any idea, please hit me up, because I have no idea what that even does. It may go to a track and hooks it up. I'm pretty sure, yeah, you can pull back on it and release it. Maybe that might lock it, and then you can just release it whenever you want to. Speaking of, here is another one. This is a 57 Chevy. Now, these are from the 90s, or not 90s, but these are definitely at least 80s. 88, late 80s, early 90s. They still work. Only bad thing is these are plastic bodies. They do have the metal bottoms, but this is when they started doing the plastic. And they got the idea and decided to keep it. Here is the Corvette. Haha. Same thing. Got the little levers in the back. And where it's plastic, the paint tends to just rub off. But these are in good shape, I believe. Here's another Corvette. This is a different paint scheme. It don't have the yellow, but Someone scratched it up, and it's an older one. I will save the battered ones. This is a sad one, and this is the Phantom from the 60s. This car is not in bad shape besides missing the wheels. If someone had the Redline wheels that it came with, it wouldn't look too bad. It's got some red paint left on it, no cracks in the windshield, engine is missing, but the body itself is a pretty cool car. That was in a grab bag at Goodwill a long time ago, and I just couldn't part with that after seeing it. You don't come across them that often. Then we have this gigantic Cadillac Seville, all metal from the 80s. What a funky looking car that is. It's even got a sunroof. This is a Street Rider, Neat Streeter. I noticed a lot of them has the red line paint there. That must have been when I bought them all from someone eventually, and they just painted them all red for some reason to mark the cars. But it's missing the engine. It's 70s, early 80s. And then we have an Omni 024. This is a kind of rare casting. I don't see this one pop up too often. I think it's my only one of this particular car. It is definite 80s. Got the black traditional metal frame on the bottom and the black walls. How about a solid metal BMW? This is from the 90s. A very hefty, solid casting. I've had this since I was in my late teens, and I got to the point where I didn't abuse them. And instead I would like do car shows, and I had all these fancy cars because that's what I did when I was younger. I would be in car shows with my car, so I did the same thing with my Hot Wheel cars. This was one of them that was participating in that. This one did too. This is an older Hot Wheels. It's a Mustang. I was trying to figure out the particular date, but this is from the 90s as well. Same time period. And I remember I'd prop it up and have the hood open so little fake people can look in the metal engine. Next we have this 80s panel body car by Hot Wheels. It's another one of them awesome poppers. I'm not going to do it because I don't want to break it, but you pop it up and you push it down and make it hyped up a little bit. It's a nice little car. This one has a little funny story. We moved here several years ago when I was in high school, coming out, into high school that is. I found this Hot Wheel car here in a flower bed that they had made here a long time ago. And it has red lines on it. It was just buried underneath all that. And it was mulch. It wasn't really dirt. It was just a bunch of mulch and stuff. We was cleaning it out, and I found 4 Hot Wheel cars. And this was one of them that was in there. So we'll cherish it and keep it to our collection. About that funny car, this is the truck that I was trying to compare it to because it has those eagles on there. This is from early mid-90s. This is from late 90s. This was actually in a very nice gift box, and I opened it. I still have another one in the box because I bought 2 of them, and it's a lowrider. And this is another car that I had in my club cars. And yes, that does just pop on and pop off, in case you're wondering. So it just clicks right in there. Here's another repeater, only this one, it has the engine and it's in a lot better shape. This is the patent pending coupe. Oldie but a goodie. This is the 1978 van. I don't even know what kind of van this is. Is it an Astro van? But this is a kind of weird one. It's made in India. I don't have too many Hot Wheel cars made in India. And it's from the 80s, early mid 80s. And then we got the yellow version of it. But this one is in Hong Kong, and I strongly believe this to be the older original casting of it. Late 70s, very early 80s. I bought this off of a collector, but it was only $2. I couldn't pass that up for $2. I love my school buses and all of my cars. This is one of my more favorites. This is the original Red Line Hot Wheels school bus. I got this at Goodwill in a box of toys, and I about flipped when I seen it in the bottom of it when I got home, because I didn't even know it was in there. The only problem is it's missing. You can see how I was telling you about earlier, these Red Line tires are in two pieces. Well, this tire is still on, but it's missing the front part of the tire. It's an easy fix. It just snaps together. But sticker decals are in still good shape, and it's a definite original, patent pending, Hong Kong. And yes, it's a funny car too. I was really stoked to find this. It's so cool bus. Now I got the vintage version of this that they made in the 90s. I think I threw it in here to compare the two. If that was in pristine condition, they could very well be, you know, easy $100 vehicle. This is the shoebox with rear ladder tires on it. I opened it because I just simply love this car. Now I got another one that's not opened, but this one I opened to play with. It's late 90s, that is. I'm getting a little groggy here, but it's in very nice shape. I never nicked it with anything. A lot of detail, and the paint is super nice on that car. Here is a Camaro, a 67, but made in the 80s, but it's 90s. It's a really nice Camaro with the opening hood. I love that paint job. It's completely flawless with the flames. Metal on metal. This is an older original 1970s tow truck. This one is in pristine condition for the most part. A lot of times you'll find that chrome faded away to black, but it's in really good shape. So there's that. Here's another Real Riders. Only I cherished this one. This is late 90s. It's got the faded off paint, and it's not missing nothing, and it's got white wall tires on it. Made in Thailand. This was from the Hot Rod magazine collection. I have a couple of them in the packaging still, but I did yank this one out because the paint is just spectacular on this car. It's got that off fade look, and then it's got really nice checker inlaid on it. It's a beautiful car. This one, if you scroll back a few videos, this is my newest haul to the collection. I didn't know if it was Hot Wheels, and we finally got it confirmed thanks to some viewers. Yeah, I looked up Revers, and naturally I found it on eBay. And we got this in a bag for a couple $2 with toys at the thrift store. And it has a little thing back here that you'd wind up with a rubber band that is missing, but I'm sure you can find more. It's just a rubber band that will snip here to here. But I seen these red lines in the bag, and I had no idea, but it looked like the Hot Wheel red lines. This is from the 70s. They're not really commanding a lot of money though. They're like $20, $30 a piece. I thought they'd be a little more than that, but I guess that's about average for those. Here is an original Fire Chief from 70s, early 80s, Hong Kong. Paint is in really good shape. Someone really took care of this car. You can tell it did not come from my childhood. Now, we picked this up in a lot, and it's a P19. Looks like an old Ferrari, but I thought it was 80s, 70s at most, but this is actually late 1969, so it's like late 60s, early 70s. It's in really nice shape, folks. I think I gave $3 for it. I never give more than $3, $4 for any car, but now as they're getting more rare, of course, if I find one I like, I'll pay $5, $6 for it. But if a red line, I'll even pay more if I'm lucky enough to come across them. But I tend to just stay away from the higher priced cars. Makes it more fun that way. This is a beautiful pink. I love pink cars because they don't make too many pink vehicles, and it's just beautiful. This is early mid 90s. It's even got a pink grill with headlights. How about the Red Line military police van? It's a really nice piece. This came from, again, another Goodwill store. They had a bag of cars for, I think it's $5. This was in there, and I immediately bought it. But that was several years ago. That Goodwill store ain't even in business now. There's another Goodwill store that they reopened down the road. But there's that. My dad got me this for Christmas a few years ago. He knows I like buses, and he got me this. This is from the 70s, early 80s Greyhound solid metal bus. I got a couple other scales that's bigger of the Greyhound buses, but for Hot Wheels, I challenge this in any kind of downhill racing because in terms of castings, I think this is the top 3 of the solid heavy duty castings that Hot Wheels made. It's even heavier than that other truck, but just barely. It's just all metal. I mean, 2 or 3 of them would probably make a pound. Here is a Red Line police cruiser. One of my absolute favorite Hot Wheel cars. This is what got me going to thrift stores. Again, I found this at a Goodwill, but this was in a mystery bag. They did $2 mystery bags there with random toys, and there was a couple cars, and they usually have 30, 40 of these bags that they put out every Monday. And I go through them all, and I seen this in there, and I flipped. At first, I thought it was a reproduction, but they don't make reproductions like this. Patent pending, Hong Kong. This is an absolute beautiful car. I wish they still did that. They stopped doing that years ago. Now, whenever they get those little toys, I never even see them sell them. I hate to think what they're really doing with them. But here is an old original Corvette from the 80s. This is a really nice shape. I love this Corvette style. I really do. I probably got 200 or 300 of these Corvettes. How about the Jet? I'm not really sure what the actual name of this is. Jet Threat, which it says 1970, patent pending, Hong Kong. This is a solid metal casting. I don't know if I'd race it. It's a little wobbly. If you'd like to see some racing, I'll be more glad to set up some track and do some races. We could easily do it. I don't mean to harp on that, but if you're really into that, please give me a shout. I'll be more than glad to take a look into that and see what I could do. This is a chrome windowed coupe, 80s, early 90s. I like that paint job because it's just a little unusual. It reminds me of the older Hot Wheel cars. Here is another Corvette from the 80s, but this is a 90s casting. Kind of similar to the other ones we had, only this hood does not open. This is the yellow version of the Fire Eater. And then we have some white versions of the Fire Eater, chrome version. Now, these are the older ones, at least vintage wise. And then yes, we even have the yellow one. This is the newer one of them, but this one even came out like early mid-90s, Thailand. So definitely like my fire trucks. Everybody knows Night Force. If you don't, this is a Hot Wheels tank made in the 90s. This one's actually in good shape, and yes, looky there. It even has a little secret hatch back there that you can open up and let your troops out of. Y'all might have seen this in the background in my last video. This is the actual working fork truck. You get the forks to go up and down, and it's not missing no plastic pieces. I have a couple of these, but the forks break off, or this breaks off. This is from the early mid-80s. How many of y'all remember the McDonald Happy Meal Hot Wheel cars that came out in the early 90s? Well, this, if you come across one, this is one of them. This is the red Thunderbird, which also came with the green Corvette. They don't say made for McDonald's or anything like that. That's kind of what throws some people off. It says the original dates for the bodies, 1997 or 1979, but that's just not really correct. These are McDonald cars, and came with a couple 57 Chevys. This is the white one. Then we got the yellow one. So, yeah, I hate raining on people's parades, but these are actually McDonald Happy Meal toys. But they're still collectible. They're definitely getting more valuable. And here is another McDonald car. There was actually 8 in this set. I still don't even have all 8 of them. I could easily find them online, but I don't really choose to go that route. Now this one is also McDonald's. This one came out, I think, a year or two later. Another 57 Chevy, and you put your own decals on it with stickers. Then we got the green one, which is also McDonald's. But when you think about it, they're kind of rare still because they were not in stores. They only came through the McDonald Happy Meals. Here's another one of those red Thunderbirds. I have multiples of these, but I do not have the others. I might have a couple more of them. There was also a black one of these, I know. There was another one of these. They basically made 2 of every model for that first year. This is a McDonald toy also. So if you have one of these, it was a McDonald toy. This is a McDonald's. In fact, I'm going to show you every vehicle right now I'm going to show you is McDonald's. This, in their 90s. These are all from the 90s. They are still definitely collectible, especially if they're in good shape, like this. This is a McDonald fast car. And they made us several of these. They got the blue one. Got that white and red one. Then, of course, my favorite, because I like advertising, this really kind of says it all. McDonald's. And it's a very nice shape. These are from the 90s. And then there was a red and white one. Normally there's 8 in the set. I'm not sure how many is in this particular set. But this one would come with stickers. And I think they all came with stickers. And then, yes, yet again, they came out with more Hot Wheel cars. I don't know when they actually started putting made for McDonald's. I think they started in the early 2000s. But we've got this very awesome, funny car And then this zebra funny car. This came with this particular car in the set of McDonald's toys. This breaks off, as you know, but all these are in pretty good shape. And then if I can find that black one, I got a black one just like this somewhere. I guess it's going to come in later in the video. This came with those also. This is a bird. And then there was a cat. All these are early mid-90s. So they are worth some value. If you find them in a yard sale, you know, don't be hesitant to pay anything under $1 because they're easily worth that or more. And if you get all 8 of them, the whole set, you can easily sell them for a set and even get some more little extra, because it's hard to find the whole set unless you cheat and buy it off eBay. Me, I like to find it in person. It just makes it a lot more fun. Here it is. This is the McDonald coupe that came with the other ones. So there's that. Now onward back to the regular cars. There might be a couple more McDonald's cars in here. Here is a police car. '90s models. Then we got the tow truck. This is from my childhood. I will point that out through the video on the ones from my childhood, because not a lot of them made it to my childhood. That's actually in good shape. This is from 2000. It's one of my newer vehicles, but it's still 21 years old now. And I decided to put it in here because it's kind of unusual. It's a B Lamborghini, metal on metal. This is the red Lamborghini. We have another police car, except this is number 39. This is the Aurora. I probably just butchered that name, but it is 4:30 in the morning. Now this is from 99 or 2000. Just your basic classic Hot Wheel car. Here's one from the early 90s. Little truck. This is a satellite truck. I got the NASA one in there somewhere, but this is from early mid-90s. It's just missing the cockpit glass, which always breaks off on these. Here is a funny car. Now this actually came from McDonald's, and this says McDonald's 2000. So I think that's when they started actually putting manufactured for McDonald's. But it is vintage, and I know it came with stickers. Luckily the stickers, they never made it onto the car. I prefer them without the stickers, unless they're put on good. Then we got this vintage little truck here from the late 90s. Look, there's a treasure. How about the airship tug? It's a definite classic from the early 90s. Black walls. This thing's in really nice shape. And we have a Mercedes M-Class, purple. Might make a good racer. Then another tank by Hot Wheels. This one has a shorter snout on it. It's still plastic. In fact, I think it had a longer one, but it may got broke off at one point. But you know, it looks a little bit better like that, so we'll leave it at that. This is a vintage. It's 2001. This is the newest one of the whole collection, but I put it in here because it's a unique car. You actually lift it up and you can drive it like this. So there's gonna be some unique cars in this video. This is one of them, and it looks like, if you look at it right, it looks like a transformer. It has the legs, torso, head. Here's the army truck, just like the other one we have. You can see how they just paint the same model each year. They have the same type of rims. They keep them every so often, every few years and so, and they change the rims, and of course they change the colors. Here's some more EMT ambulances. This is actually the same casting, but they just put bigger wheels on it. Let's see if we can show you in comparison. Ta-da. They just tweaked it out pretty good. And you flip it up, let's see, like that. Very little change with the bottom either. But this is, of course, the newer one. This is the more earlier 90s. This came out maybe around 2000, late 90s. This is early 90s because I've had it from my childhood. I never played with it much. It's just a really weird Hot Wheel car. It says 92, so it's 92, 93. It's got some dirt in the wheels, but it still rolls. And really, if it just gets cleaned up a little, it's still really nice shape. Just dirty. Another tow rig from the 90s. This is a newer version of that fire truck, the old number 5. Only this is the orange version that came out in late 90s. Corvette time. We have the green early 90s Corvette convertible. Just slightly dirty. I do like that green color though. We have a coupe from the late 90s with the 3-spoke rims, which is a dead giveaway. Then we have another one of those trucks. This was a white and red truck. If you notice, I don't know why it is, that compartment on the back, it always ends up missing. I have probably 20 or 30 of these in different variations. Every one of them is missing the back compartment. It just pops right out and it's gone. Here's a yellow classic truck from the 90s. I got that blue version earlier in the video of this model. Early 90s Corvette with the red plastic bottom. This is mid 90s, I believe. Then we have another Eroa, whatever that is. But we got that from the 90s. Here is a really nice Thunderbird from the 90s. Green and black. A vintage Real Riders that's actually in really nice shape. This is from 2000, 2001. Maybe even 99, but yeah, it's about 20 years old. This is unique. This is the Train engine from the late 90s. Yeah, it rolls. I like these futuristic type of cars. This is a concept 62 Ford Mustang from the late 90s. If only they made it like that, right? How about a Real Riders Corvette? This is a 6. How about the Camaro Real Riders? An absolute beauty. This is from late 90s, really early 2000s. This was another one of my car pieces that I put in my little car shows. It's just an absolute beauty. Here is another color changer. This is another year they did color changers, but they made plastic bodies. This is a Thunderbird from the 90s. Here is a Ferrari with a little bit of dirt on it. Mid-late 90s Ferrari. A 1958 Corvette. Look at the size of that engine. This is from a mid to late 90s. Got the skull and crossbones on the back of it. Can't go wrong with the El Caminos. They've been making this casting for quite a while. This is one of the earlier ones though. This is from late 90s, early 2000s. Got the white paint job. A very iconic dune buggy. I've got several of these, so I thought we'd throw that in there. Everybody knows that's a nice vintage piece. This is from the late 90s. This is one of the newer versions of a Hot Wheel car. It's made to be racing. This is kind of like a taxi, I guess. It used to have something up here, but this is from the early mid-90s. Like the purple plastic. This came from Hot Wheels Scorchers. It was in a nice fancy package. It was a more fancier high-end car, and we opened it. We have one more that's not open. I opened it mainly because of the paint job, and it wasn't a whole lot of money. I think it was like $4 or $5. But that was back in the 90s, so that was some hefty money for back then. Then we got this 2000 sharp looking car. This is called Hammerhead. I guess because it looks like a hammer, right? This is from the 90s. It's a boat. We don't have too many boats. It's a shame, but the engine's missing. This is a nice collar to this particular casting. It's a die-cast car with a weird windshield. Another El Camino. This is an orange version of it. See, the bottom looks a little more older. It's still around the same time period that as this one. A Lamborghini. This is from the 90s. This one has the plastic bottom though, so probably more late 90s. We had to throw this in. This is from the early mid 90s. Ta-da! It's the toilet. It has a name, Hot Seat, 1997. They didn't make this too long though. The casting got pretty much retired pretty fast. I don't know why, but this one is actually intact and it has everything on it. A great piece for this video. This is from the 90s. Farm truck. But strangely enough, that don't move. I just now noticed that. That is actually all metal, one piece, and then it's got plastic for arms that don't even move. Interesting. This is from the mid to late 90s. Ah, here is one of the McDonald original first Hot Wheel cars that went with the red one. Ta-da. So there's the blue one of it. Here's a Ferrari. I like these early 90s castings of the Ferraris. It's got some good detail in there if you see it, where the engine is. I have several of these Mercedes. I have, I think I bought like 20 of these when I was a kid. And I had a Mercedes dealership. It may sound strange, but I had rows of these cars, same car. I just for some reason was fascinated by it because it was all metal, and I would lay them out, display them, and make it like a car dealership. So some of them made it into the show. I just didn't put them all in here. There may be a couple more in there. Here is that NASA truck I was telling you about. But we do have the cockpit in this, and this is in really nice shape. This is from actually late 80s, early 90s, as this was the first model that they rolled out. Because I've had this since I was a kid. I absolutely love it to this day. I like anything that looks like NASA related. Here is a SWAT police van. Kind of the same body style as the ice cream truck. It's similar. Only got opening doors in the back. This is made from early 90s. Here's a late 90s Hot Wheel car. HotWheels.com. This is just in the same time period as I stopped playing with them and just started collecting them. I would open them and just display them. This is 99 and the 2000 era. I bought a bunch of these kind of cars. Here is a Ferrari from the late 90s. You can't go wrong with a red Ferrari, and especially if it's all metal. That is a really nice car. And then we have another one, but I don't know what it is. Do they look different to you, or is it just me? For some reason this looks a little more higher than this. Oh, they are not the same. We got one hoof here, but this one has two hoofs in the hood. Okay, it's not just me. They're different. They're different castings. They're from the late 90s, both of them are. And then we got this gigantic Lincoln, which is also from late 90s. Solid metal truck from Hot Wheels. Here's yet another version of that ambulance. I think they finally retired that casting a while back, but this is a purple ambulance from the late 90s. Yeah, Sabretooth. How you like to be picked up in that thing? And we got this pickup truck. A lot of times the topper is gone. This one still has the plastic topper. This is from the early mid-90s. My dad, ironically, to this day, drives a truck just like this. He's got other vehicles, but he still has that particular truck for a spare. Then we got this. This is from the late 90s. Kind of unusual looking car, but I do remember it driving really smoothly back in the day, because I did race them when I was younger. Here is another Ferrari. Just like the red one, we have one scoop here, as there's a piece of dust flying around in here. Metal on metal Ferrari. Got another Volkswagen Bug. This is from the mid-late 90s. All metal. Double Vision. This is a pretty iconic car. This one is from the late 90s. I do love the paint colors. It's a beautiful car. Early 90s Corvette in the beautiful silver. A Nomad Redline. But this came in a 4-piece set from the early 2000s. And we thought we'd throw them all 4 in here. So this is number 1. I absolutely love this casting. But I have several in the packagings of each one because I went to all the Walmart stores in this state pretty much. And when I was a younger guy, I just had all the time in the world, and I bought up anything that had these Redline tires because I was thinking, the Redline, they're going to be collectible. Ironically, though, you can still buy these in the packaging for $6, $7, $8 off eBay. Because one day I got to looking, and these are the vintage ones. Now, they do have the originals. If you come across the originals, they're not going to say vintage on them, and they're going to look slightly different, of course. And then there's a blue one. Good, I got them all close together here. This is actually another Hot Wheel car that was from the really early 70s, this Redline. This is the Sidekick. So this was a 4-car set, and it's just like a regular basic 4-car set today. They're basic cars, and they're all metal except for this. But I think it's, to this day, a real beautiful set of cars. And I dare say I got probably 100 to 120 of these cars. You can see it in one of my older videos. I just named it Red Lines All Over the Place or something like that. It's a table full of just these 4 cars. I don't know what I'm going to do with them, but I'm just going to hold on to them, I guess. We came across Hong Kong Phooey a while back in the Redline form, or not Redline, but the Real Rider form. It was in a set of cars that we bought. It's not missing anything. The paint's okay. And I grew up to Hong Kong Phooey. I totally forgot about him until I seen this car. Hong Kong Phooey. It was a really interesting show back in the day. We got a Corvette here with the opening hood. But you can see the windshield is gone. 90% of the time when you find these, the windshield's broken or gone. A cement mixer from the early 90s. The red, white, and blue. Then we have a plastic, looks like a Monte Carlo. Not really sure, but we'll go with Monte Carlo because it looks like a racing Monte Carlo. Now, I bet you this will be good on the track because it has the metal and it's got the plastic, but it's got these tires on it. It's looks like it'll be a good racer. I love my Corvettes. I gotta say, this is one of the tops. This is a Real Rider Corvette that I came across very recently in one of my lots I bought with toys, because when I find someone selling a bunch of cars, if it's cheap, and I think they're getting one just to get rid of them, I'll be like, how much you want for them? And I'll just buy them, even if it's a shoebox full, a tote full, without even going through them, making like I don't want to let them know that, you know, I really think they're valuable. Wait and see if they make me buy a whole lot of them, and I will. And normally they will let you buy them all together for one price. This is a vintage Corvette from early 90s. It's a red Real Riders. But the paint is just remarkable on this car. You can see the detail on it if it don't blur. I just absolutely love this car. It may have came in one of my thrift store bags, but it came in something because that's just where I usually pick these up at. Definitely had to put that in here. Then we got this Ferrari. I believe this is actually this is an older Jaguar. This is from the early mid-90s. My voice may be going out, but it's real worth it. This is a kind of unique car from the late 90s. It's another version of a crashing car. This one's actually pretty cool because you can crash it and it's a very simple fix. You don't have to worry about, oh God, is it going to repair itself? You can see how it works. It just slides like that. They only made these for, I think, a year or two, and then they retired them also. The Dodge Viper pickup truck. I remember being in high school when the Dodge Viper came out in my high school year. That was like the most popular vehicle in the late 90s. And that was just a very beautiful car. Even to this day, the Dodge Viper is a beautiful car. And we got these to remember it by. Here is a little coupe from the early mid-90s. We already found one of those, so we're just going to skip that. 57 Chevy. I was a teenage freak from outer space. This is from late 90s or early 2000s. It was in another special set that I bought. I got gold. Or it wasn't really a set, it was just a special package for the Hot Wheel car. Then we got this little rig, solid metal. And I didn't know, but there's another. So yeah, we have a bunch of duplicates. I just didn't rush this putting everything together, but when you're going through thousands of cars and trying to make sure you don't have duplicates, it will happen. But here's another very nice Corvette from the early mid-90s. The paint is really pretty brilliant on this basic car. You would think it was a treasure hunt. Then we got another funny car. This is a newer version of the funny cars. But I did see in a video literally just a couple weeks ago of this car racing. It actually came in first place on one of their videos. I think I see why. I mean, it just looks like built for racing. Then we got this Pontiac from the late 90s. Kind of like a futuristic type of deal. Cars are starting to look like this now. Finally. This is a pretty iconic little car. I think it's a Ferrari. Or maybe a Ferraro. But it's the early 90s. And it's the only one I think I have of that model. Then we have another one of them funny cars. It's the same body style. Only this is just advertising something different on it. So that one don't want to roll with it. It don't want to roll with it, nothing. How about a limousine? This actually had a sliding sunroof, I thought. Maybe it didn't. I might be confusing that with another car, but this is from the early mid-90s. How about Beach Patrol? That's a definite early 90s little Jeep, and it's got everything together. It makes me want to go to the beach. Thought we'd throw this in here. This is an early 90s dinosaur car, because they're actually bringing the TV series Dinosaurs back. And when I seen this, I was thinking, why not put that in there? It's a TV show that I grew up with in the 90s. Very funny show, and they're, from what I gather, they're bringing it back. Not the, what was that? Not the mama, or something like that. I think that's what the little kid dinosaurs say. But anyway, back to the cars. This is an early, this is a 2001, 2002 type of car. Again, the newest ones in my collection here. There's nothing newer than 2001 on here. Just another little Hot Wheel car. This is a very huge 164 Thunder Roller from the early 80s. When you see these, they usually don't have this on there, and it's usually shorter. But this is the king size cab, and it's all metal. I would absolutely love to find some more of these, but this is my only one out of the thousands of cars I have. But they made this plastic, and of course it's gotten broken off. I think it's just cause where it's so heavy, and you just drop it, it's going to break that plastic. But I just like the Eagles. I like any Eagles that's on the cars. It's just a real heavy, thick body. This one's kind of similar, but it's got the short bed on it. If you can see that. And this is all plastic as well, but it's not as near as heavy as this yellow one. If you can tell the size. This has got a lot more cubic metal on there. And it's even got some windows on the very top. Now, this is from the early mid-90s. Big rig. Here's another car that I opened up and just displayed from the late 90s, 2000s, because it's just one of them muscle cars. I'm into muscle cars, most definitely. This is a Carter changer. What's left of it, but this is from the 80s, during the Carter's changing years. What's left of it. This is a Real Riders early 90s Mustang. It's a little dirty, but it's a pretty cool little casting. Metal on metal. There's a cement truck. You can see where the plastic is actually starting to turn yellow because this is from the early 90s. This is my childhood toy, by the way. I had several of these that broke and busted off, but this one, it is bent, but it's actually still in there. And go figure, I even bent the frame on this. It's metal, but I managed not to break this. Here is another boat from the early mid-90s. A yellow and red fire boat. I bought several of these because when they came out in 2000, it's a Monte Carlo solid metal on metal car. And again, that's when I raced cars. And this, if you race cars, look for this car. This is a Monte Carlo from late 90s, early 2000s. It won in my races every time, and that was my king car for racing. Then we have this soapbox car. They made several different variations in terms of colors for this. That's the late 90s car. Then we got another McDonald car. This is in really nice shape. It's just missing the back end as usual. 99% of the time when I find these rigs, the back end is gone. 100% time with these. Here's another variation of this same truck, missing the back. Here's a Camaro from the early mid-90s. Kind of retro, isn't it? And then we have this tiny little baby Hot Wheel car. All metal from the mid-90s. This is the newer version of that solid metal truck that I had earlier in the video. This is all plastic. The bottom's plastic. Basically anything red is the metal. This is from the early mid-90s. Then we got the twin engine, or Way Too Fast actually. There's so many different Hot Wheel models, but this is the Way Too Fast from late 90s, early 2000. This is from the late 90s. Just another Hot Wheel car. It's a futuristic kind of car. Another big rig, orange. Got a Thunderbird. This one is a red one with the stripes. Earlier I showed a red one that didn't have pin striping. This is from early mid-90s. I love this car for some reason because you can tell it's early 90s. These Jeeps just don't survive that well because they get battered and beat up. But this one's in good shape. The tires, they go every different direction. I guess this is a stationary one too. If you can look real close, if you even have these, you know that it's just one solid piece of metal. How are you supposed to actually, you know? But yet all the yellow is plastic. And the light greens. Anyway, this is from the early 90s. Late 90s. I just never noticed that until I started doing this video. And then we have another McDonald. I have several of these, but that's another McDonald car. Here's another one, the Mercedes. They're all in good shape. Because I never did anything besides display them. There's another race car. This is from the early 90s. Mid-90s. Now here's another good race car. This is the same casting as that red one. This is a Monte Carlo. And again, that's a nice race car too, if you want to race cars. But the red one, it did defeat the yellow one, even though they're the same casting. Here is a Dodge Viper. I don't have many Vipers, but this is from the early mid-90s when Viper was first released, because I've had that for this long. When I was a kid or teenager, if I saw a Dodge Viper, I bought it in the stores. That was one of them. Here is the Mustang, the mid-early 90s, 94 to early 2000s Mustang. Put that in here because the others I have, the windshield, of course, gets broken. This one still has it. This is an unusual Hot Wheel truck. This was from my childhood. It brought back some memories when I dug it out. Check out the damage I put into this thing, and it still survived. I'm pretty sure I just stood it up and took a big hammer and just whacked it. Broke the metal, plastic, but it still stayed together. That's how they made it back then. You do that today? I hate to see what would happen with some of the cars. This is another convertibles. So yeah, I actually got a couple of these convertibles which I didn't even really pay much attention to. It has the opening engine there. So these are from the early 90s, I believe, from what I saw in that box. This is a late 90s, early 2000s convertible. This is actually late 90s police vehicle. I wanted to put that in here because it's kind of unique. Looks like a bug, but it actually says well, 2000. But I do know it's at least from that time period because most of these cars has been sitting for a good while since I've had them, and that's another one I've had for a while, like this. I got several of these. This is an old metal on metal pickup truck. Then we have these awesome construction trucks. This is the only one I have is black and yellow. This is from the early mid-90s, from my childhood. And while I'm on that subject, let me just show you how much I like my construction vehicles. That's just some of them. I have several more of them, and then I picked up more over the years because anytime I find one, I know they're from the early 90s. They're all metal. and they didn't really make another variation of this orange one. So when you find one, you're guaranteed at least early mid 90s on these orange ones. This came later though. These were first. I think these were the first ones they actually made orange, and then they went to this, and maybe a few others before they retired that casting. And you can see that's plastic. These are metal. Here's another Ferrari. This is a color changer from the early 90s, early mid 90s. Plastic top, metal bottom. But I still love these cars because they're from my childhood, so I'm gonna love any car that's from that time period. Here's an MRZ. Nice red. Toyota. It's from the late 90s, early 2000s. How about a gigantic Jolly Rancher truck from mid-late 90s? I've had this thing for quite some time. I got a couple others, but the sticker got faded. This one is in brilliant shape. This came from Hot Rod magazine too. 4 cars in that set, I believe. And I opened it because it's a hot rod. This is definitely from the late 90s, early 2000s. Then we have Dirty Dog. There's another one of them castings that I like, just because they're getting to be older and more collectible. This gives you an idea about the wheels. Even we don't play with them much, they just are so big, they get really floppy, and they tend to just, it rolled straight there earlier, but if you roll it kind of slower, it just wants to do its thing. How many of y'all remember this? Yeah. They made a couple of variations of this. This is the silver one. It may have been the first year they came out with this particular casting, in 1987. Silver and gold. If not, it's definitely one of the early ones from the early 90s, mid 90s. So that's a pretty cool little car. Here's another Ferrari from the early mid 90s. BMW, another car from my childhood. It survived. I didn't really beat up my BMWs too much. I've even owned 3 of them since then. I try to get some cool cars every now and then to drive around. We got this Ferrari. This is my goal though. I want a Ferrari in real life if possible one day. And all the Ferraris though, this is kind of one of my favorite Ferrari body styles though. You really can't go wrong with that. Oh, and by the way, this is from really early 90s, 90, 91, 92, 93. Got another old police car. These are dime a dozen in my collection. Then we have another, or actually this is a Lotus. I don't have too many Lotuses. This is from the early mid 90s. Another supercar that I really, really enjoy. This is a Sidekick, but for some reason they made this one out of metal. It's metal and metal. Why didn't they make the blue one metal out of metal? I mean, all the other ones in the set are metal. Then they came out with this shortly after. Now, if you come across it at a yard sale, and it says 1970, and it's all metal, you can easily mistake this as an original, but you just gotta be careful and know that it is just from the early 2000s, late 90s, because they can fool you. Here's another red Porsche. We'll skip that because we came across that earlier. Now here's another retro they actually brought back. I showed y'all earlier that red line version I have of it. This is the Diorama 1. It says 67. Again, be careful if you find this in yard sales. It's not old. Although this is from 99, 2000, 2001. And it says return of the 50-foot Moon Maiden, a good sci-fi movie. I don't know what happened to the surfboards, or even if it came with surfboards. I've had it for a long time. I'm just not sure. Then we got another funny car. This is an older one, early 2000s, late 90s. So we had to take a quick bathroom break, but we are back, and let's show you this cool Jeep from the late 90s. I like the green. Here's kind of an unusual car, and a Isuzu from the late 90s. I wanted to put that in here because I don't have too many of this particular car. Seems to roll nicely though. And then we have that. This is from the late 90s, early 2000s. We have another tow truck, but we'll skip him because we came across one earlier. And here's something y'all haven't seen yet. Get these hairs off of it. The purple version. This is from the 80s, early 90s. Purple snow plow truck. Corvette from the late 90s. A lot of them usually has that fire on there, don't they? Then we got Rocket Oil. This is actually from 2000. But we thought we'd throw that in there because it's an unusual car. May or may not be a racer. And then of course we have the Ferrari from 1999. So this is early 2000s or 99. It looks brand new though. Getting into some more Jeeps. These are Jeeps from the early mid 80s. You can see the typical thing missing, the windshield. And then here's the same style, only it's missing the windshield and it's got the bigger swamp tires, blue and pink. This is a beautiful Corvette. I don't know if light can do justice, but that's kind of an orangish, pinkish paint job. And that's just dirt really on there. We can just scrape that off, but it's really nice shape. This is definitely from the early mid 90s. Speaking of pink, we have a pink rig here. Over the years though, this has tarnished somehow, some way. I never painted it or done anything with it. It's just changed color. This may even be a color changer, but I'm not sure. If you think it is a color changer, let me know. I just can't tell. I don't think it is though. Here is a Ferrari from the early mid 90s with those nice wheels. Got a little construction crane here. This is from mid 90s. It's something I used to play with when I was younger, to dig the dirt. Another Corvette with a smiley face on it. I've had this for a while too. This is from early mid 90s. Kept it in really good shape over the years. Green is my favorite color, so I did not bring no harm to that. Here's a pink rig that matches the last one, so we'll just stick it over here. Corvette. Yes, we got another Corvette here. This is the red version of it with some nice flames on it. definitely a sucker for that kind of stuff. Then we have this Nomad, I believe. No, this is a Chevelle, 1970. But I love this casting. This is from the 90s. It's all metal. And it's got some weight to it. How about some Corvettes? Same body style basically, but they're different ages. They're both from the 90s though. You can tell by the wheels. So, for Corvettes for you. Another lowrider. We have about 50, 60 of these lowriders I bought, if not more, from early 2000. Then we have this custom painted solid metal van. This is from early mid 80s. And again, we have the plastic opening hood. Let's not go wrong with Corvette. Here is the purple Corvette with some stripes on it. This is an older one, you can tell by the bottom too. This is from the late 80s, early 90s. But it will easily fool you because it says 79 Mattel. And again, it could be from the 80s. I'm just not really sure, but I've had it for a while. The way it looks on there, it looks like it could definitely be more vintage. This is an unusual car from early 90s. So, yeah, looks like a spaceship kind of car. This has since faded over the years, though. A yellow Corvette from the 90s, late 90s. Late 90s, solid metal Phantom car here. We got a Nomad. This is an older Nomad from late, early 90s. It says 69 Nomad. And if you come across a Nomad and it says Hong Kong, looks like this, you got yourself a nice vehicle. Here's a larger Hot Wheels. This is from 1999. It's a big dump truck. Thought we'd throw that in there because this is from my childhood. But sadly, I was too old to really use my imagination and dig with it. But I know it's older, so we threw that in here because it's kind of unusual. Hot Wheels race car from late 90s. Got a big old Ferrari here with the big tires from the 90s. I definitely love my Ferraris. Here's a super iconic car from the late 90s, mid 90s. It says Hot Wheels on it. I think that's 95 or 96 that that came out. Real Riders. I wish this was in better shape, but we got He-Man's character on here. I don't know who he is now. I forgot his name. That little purple dude. But this is from the 90s, I believe. 90s or early 2000s. Then we have another color changer Porsche. I didn't know I had two of these, but there's apparently two of them. And ship shape. Another coupe from late 90s, early 2000s. Got a girl on top of there. Woohoo, woohoo. How about a golf cart from late 90s, early 2000s? Only this golf cart has a gigantic engine on it. Got another MR2 Toyota. Looks like a Supra, don't it? It may be a Supra. Range Rover. We don't have too many of these. This is from the early 90s. as we're starting to run out of room here. We got a yellow cement truck. We had the red, white, and blue one earlier. This is the yellow one from the early 90s. Here is the famous Bronco. Everybody knows the Bronco from OJ. This is the same body style. This is from late 80s, early 90s. But this one still has the topper, and it still has the bike. That tends to break off after the years gets older. Got a gigantic early 90s dozer in very nice shape. And again, you really can't move that either. It's plastic. So it's fascinating. I mean, it really is. The vehicles I played with when I was younger, you could actually move them up and down and stuff. This you can't either. This is from early 90s. We came across this a while back in a bag. It's a vintage classic car here. There's no yellowing on the window, which really tends to happen with these. This is in really nice shape. I was really pleased to pick that up. Now these are from my childhood, and I don't see them too often. These are from the 80s, because I've had these since I was literally 10, 11, 12 years old. 80s or late 80s. You open them up, you got a gigantic metal engine in there with the plastic fin. And then you open this one too, and it's all metal with plastic on it. It says 1984 on the bottoms of both of them, but they're definitely from the 80s, if not 80s, like 1990 I would say, but I would not say any newer than that, because I've had these things for a very long time. And I didn't even really beat them up, but you can see how the wheels go slanted, and it's really kind of hard to straighten those back out. It is possible if you work hard enough without breaking it. Here is another Corvette with the red lines. This actually came in a gift pack, and that was the only way you could get this particular car. I found that on YouTube a while back. I always wondered where this car came from, and now I know. It was like a box of 5 Hot Wheel cars, and that was one of them. Then we got this yellow solid metal pickup truck. I'm missing the plow, as usual, on these vehicles. We got another Royal Flash, only this one is white. Now here's another one of those rocket type of cars. We had the green one, this one's the red one, from the early 90s. That you can roll. It's in nice shape too. I just didn't really do much with it when I was younger. How about the Ford Fairmont? That's a definite black wall. And then we got another Hot Wheel turbo heater from 80s. This is definitely 80s. This is 80s as well. But we are missing the hood. We already showed you one of these, so this one is Malaysia also. Here's an iconic 90s Camaro, early mid 90s. Again, you can match this wheel with these. They made them, I don't know when they actually began and ended this body style, or with these rims. It was late 80s, early 90s when they changed it to another. Then we got the gold trim Camaro rims, which is from the 80s, early 90s. Here's a Jaguar with the green rims, purple. Here's a Real Rider we found last year. It's the Ford. I'm guessing it's early 2000s. I thought you could open the hood, but you can't. It's a nice looking casting though. I love finding these out and about and just random Hot Wheel cars. because they're $4 or $5 a piece in stores. Then we got the Ferrari, where you can actually see inside the back there and see the engine. It's got some nice detail. This is from the 90s. Another traditional Corvette. This one's blue from the 90s. I think late 90s, because that's when they had that wheel going on. And then we have another black Corvette. We'll just leave him out because we came across one of those earlier. And another one of these trucks, except this is blue with the eagle on it. They made a lot of these different ones. Hopefully one day we come across all of them. I love carnival stuff. We got a Hot Wheels Sideshow 18-wheeler here. Well, 6-wheeler. This is from the early mid-90s. Definitely a big fan of that particular vehicle. And I definitely love this. This is probably my favorite Thunderbird. Get the dust off of it. The red, white, and blue. This is from the late 90s or close to early 2000s, I believe. I've had it for quite a while, but yeah, there's that. Then we got another shoebox here. And this was just your basic traditional car. Just your regular 90-some cent vehicle. But the paint job is pretty spectacular on it. It's got that nice faded paint. It looks like a specialty car, but it was actually just your basic car. I got about 5 of those also in the packaging because I bought every one of them that I found. Oh boy, if you only knew how many cars I had. We'll get that to another day. But we got a Camaro here, which is a police car from the 80s, early 90s. And we got another rig that we came across, so we'll just skip that. We got a little coupe here. I don't know if it even had a window. There's not even a place to put a window. But this is from 2000. Thought we'd slide him in here. Got the Hot Wheel camper from the 70s. So we'll say 70s or early 80s. You can see the inside of it too. It's got no broken windows. Dale Earnhardt Monte Carlo. I've had this car for a very long time. This was one of my old race cars. You can still see some old mud dirt on the bottom of it from where I raced it. Memories. That's definite late 80s, early 90s. And then they got this mid 90s, kind of a unique looking car. I would not want to drive it because if you do, you're going to get speared in the head. Got another tractor, except this is solid red, and we're going to skip that. This is a definite older one, but you can see in the back the glass is half broken. And it actually had a topper that connected both of them. I think it was brown. But this is from the 70s. 70s or early 80s. So if you come across one of these, it's definitely more vintage. This is from the 80s, early 80s. It's a dragster car, what's left of it. Actually, it's supposed to be made like that, I believe. Now, this will trick you too because this is not old. It is now because it's vintage. This came out in, I think, 2000, 2001. But if someone tries to say this is from 69, it's the same color and very similar to the 69. Even the wheels look identical. But look for, if it says vintage on the bottom of it, it's not the original. And it's not going to say China on it either. It will say Hong Kong patent pending. So please just be careful because people do get tricked into that, which it sucks. But some people just don't know and some people do it deliberate. And while we're on the subject, here is the vintage school bus. Now I got the original, but this is the remake, and I'll show you the difference. On the bottom it says vintage school bus. Also, it don't say Hong Kong nowhere. It's a patent pending. It says China. So also, these are painted on. They're not actual stickers. So that there's a dead giveaway too. And you got the Hot Wheel logo. And also, another dead giveaway is the tires. A true collector will know a Redline tire is two pieces. These are one solid piece. But if you look at it like this, it does look like the original. And let me see if we can, yeah. I like to educate if I can every now and then. So here is the vintage and here's the real. They are the same casting. They literally took the same casting and just brought it back to life. But what you're going to look for on the bottom, you can see the major difference there. They even have the bars and the drive shafts in the exact same spot. It's just the writing is different. But you can see right there the wheels. They're two-piece wheels here, and this is one-piece wheels. And yeah, you still open up both of them too, and bada bing, bada boom. Don't mean to keep you, but I love showing things just to help keep you from making a big mistake, because you could pay $30, $40 for a vehicle you think is old and is actually not old. Now here's a Camaro with a plastic body. This is from early mid-90s. As we are actually getting closer to the end of the video, we have a yellow metal solid Hong Kong dump truck. Now this is definitely from the early mid-80s. We have a Rocky Mountain Rescue. So if you're stuck in those Rocky Mountains, this will come rescue you. This is from the early 90s. And then there's the number 7 Ferrari. I found so many of these castings with the broken windshield. This one actually still has it. We're going to skip that because that's another one we've seen earlier. But we have not seen this. This is the color changer police car. This is from the 80s. This will change into a different shade of green for the police car. We got another Fairmont. Both about equal condition. This is one of the older fire trucks, but this is yellow. This is definitely 80s. This is also an older one, Hot Wheel loader. This is from the 80s, early 90s. I'm a little stumped on this one. I know it's vintage, but I don't know exactly how old. Just mainly because of that red decal sticker in the glass that's kind of broken. I know you open this, and then we got a little button here that claps in there. I came across this a few years ago, but I'm not really sure much about it. It says made in China. It may be 20, 30 years old. I'm just not really quite sure. If you know, I would love to hear from you. We got a Camaro 67. Now, of course, it's not that old, but it is from the early mid-90s. Another classic from my childhood. Any Camaro I found, I did keep. Just your basic solid silver car, and there's no scratches or dents or anything like that on it. How about another funny car to end the show here shortly? This one is from Malaysia, but it's definitely 90s. It's a beautiful car. Then we have this, kind of looks like a bike, but also kind of looks like a car from the mid-late 90s. We got this early 90s, I think Lexus. It's not a BMW, but I'm thinking it's a Lexus. US Mail. This is a definite vintage from the 80s, early 90s. Actually, this is 76 Hong Kong. So this is actually late 70s, early 80s. This is one of the original castings for this. You got the opening doors. Besides a little bit of paint damage, it's in good shape. Early 90s Ferrari. Again, you see them weird looking rims. That's how you can really date your cars if you dig into detail. Late 90s, early 2000 coupe. Definitely want to put that in here because it's in really nice shape. It literally looks like I just opened it. Same with this. This is from the same time period. I like the purple with the light purple. How many of y'all like the Cinnamon Toast Crunch? Because we have the Corvette. This is in pristine condition from the early mid-90s. I've had this thing for a long time. I usually keep it in a little trophy case just to keep the glass from getting broken. One of my favorite Corvettes right there. This is from the 80s. It's a little coupe. Of course, anytime you find these, it's usually missing the headlights. This is a solid metal van that someone painted chrome, but it actually used to be green, so that's why we put it in the video. It's not black, and it has the plastic hood. If there's some way to get that off there, we might try to do that to see exactly what it looks like under there. And by the way, it is made in Hong Kong, so it is an older casting. That's the only main reason I like to see if I can try to clean it up. Then we have another Hong Kong dump truck. How about an early 90s steamroller? And it actually works. Ha ha ha. Surprise, surprise. Got a big long Cadillac. It's long, but it's super thin. This is a pretty cool car. Usually when I find them, it's missing this. This is from the early 90s. I grew up with a couple of these, but this breaks off so easily. So super stoked to actually still have one that's actually in good shape. We came across one of these during the earlier video, so we have a couple of those. This is an older 911 Porsche, Hong Kong. It's just really, really rugged shape. It even looks like the windshield got burned. Here's a spoiler sport. The windshield busted out of it, but it is an older one from the 70s in Hong Kong, 70s, early 80s. Besides the windshield, it's not bad shape. That can come off. It's just got some black dirt on it. Here's a 57 Chevy. Metal on metal. This is 80s model. 80s, early 90s. And yet another Mercedes. Got 5 of them just right there. And we have early 80s, late 80s, beautiful purple Ferrari here with some striping on it. And we're going to end the show with this midnight removal pickup truck. We have the snowplow and the headlights, and the paint is really nice shape. So we are pleased to still have this in really good condition. This is a true Blackwall. We hope you enjoyed today's show. Please let us know what you think. Until then, happy hunting out there. Goodbye.